Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. It's a time for City Manager's report for April of this month, recapping events and activities of the last month. So we'll just jump right into it. Here are the dates that you should be adding to your calendar coming up over the next month and into May. The next legislative forum meeting will be at 9 o'clock at the North Dakota State Fair. That'll be one of the last legislative forums that the Chamber will be hosting. So one of the last opportunities for us to engage with our legislators about important issues.
Not to interrupt you, Tom, and
yes,
I do apologize. It's very likely that one might be canceled if they're in conference committee already.
All right. Thank you,
we'll
sir.
Keep an eye on that.
Okay. Board of Equalization will meet at 6:30 in chambers here on April the 9th for those who have appointments that have already been scheduled. We're going to be dividing the groups up, as you know, like we've done last year, to try to keep them to be efficient. And so as you arrive for that, we'll be making those adjustments. April 15th is our next council meeting, of course, here in chambers. Good Friday is April 19th, and the city will be closed. All offices will be closed. The Visit Minot annual meeting will be held on the 25th of April. Magic Fund meeting on the 26th at 7:30 in the morning here in Chambers. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be held here at Chambers at 6:30 on the 30th. And then we have on May 2nd a preliminary budget workshop meeting. I'm going to talk a lot more about that as we get into the presentation here, but that should be on your calendar. And citywide cleanup days will be May 3rd and 4th. And again, this is an event we want to thank the Chamber for sponsoring and essentially arranging. May 8th will be a town hall meeting, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in the presentation as well.
Tom, one more little quick one on the Board of Equalization. I promise I won't interrupt again.
Sure.
It's actually 5:30 and not 6:30 on April 9th, according to our clerk.
5:30. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. We'll get that changed as well. All righty. Excellent. Let's talk about legislative impacts. The next thing we want to talk about is just to remind the City Council that about 960 bills or so and resolutions, other sorts of things, were introduced in the legislative session. I mentioned that number last time I was before you. We've been watching over 100 of these, testifying on dozens of them. I wanted to give you an update on some important major wins and losses that we've experienced just recently over the last couple weeks. House Bill 1066 was the Prairie Dog bill. This is the infrastructure bill and also the bill that has the Hub City funding formula included in it. That did pass both House and the Senate, so we're excited about that. The governor signed that. That will add about $4 to $6 million every single biennium to the city of Minot's revenues. So that's great news, something that I have been working on along with the staff for about 18 months or so. So we're very, very pleased with the outcome there, and our community will benefit essentially indefinitely because the funding formula is permanent until the state legislature decides it wants to make a change on that front. Or, and it's based essentially on oil and gas production and as well the price of that production. We did have a major loss on Senate Bill 2275. This was the low interest revolving loan bill. This was extremely important to us because we have, as you know, an enormous feat ahead of us in financing the flood control, regional flood control project here. And that particular bill would have allowed for access to low interest loans, about 2% loans for a term of about 40 years and a rate of about, well, I already said 2%, but a coverage ratio of around 1, which is much, much better than the 2 coverage ratio or 200% coverage ratio for the conventional loans. That would have allowed us to double our bond capacity, save tens of millions of dollars, north of $100 million to be more accurate. And it would ensure flood control progress of the local share on a timely basis. Not all is lost. We are working with legislators to try to come up with some other type of mechanism, and maybe an amendment to Senate Bill 2275 will be in order. If not, some different mechanism through appropriations might be in order as well. So we're working on improvements and adjustments to 2275, but unfortunately that will not pass in its current form. Other notable bills, the extraterritorial permit fees. House Bill 1471 did pass, so we will need to make adjustments as a community as we are no longer going to be allowed to charge a surcharge outside of the city limits. That'll be something you'll see in the budget. We'll have to make an adjustment for all permit fees on that front, or subsidize further those activities with property taxes. So that'll be a discussion for us to have here in the near future. Local enforcement ticket caps. This is law enforcement caps on traffic fines and those sort of things. That did pass. We're glad to see that pass. That will allow us and all cities across the state to charge 100%, ironically, above the state's fees. So we go backwards on one, forwards on another. It's kind of interesting. And then House Bill 1200, which was the prevention of political subdivisions from regulating auxiliary containers and straws and plastic bags and those sorts of things. That did pass, so all jurisdictions across the state will not have an opportunity to engage in any discussion or adjustment on that front. Up next, we have a couple of things to watch. Senate Bill 2020. This is the large State Water Commission appropriation bill. We currently have been recommended for about $65 million for our flood control project. You know our request was $100 million. So we're about $35 million short of the need in order to keep flood control proceeding at a pace that had been developed in the schedule. We continue to work this bill, and it looks like maybe we're inching our way north of this $65 million mark, but that we are going to fall far short of the $100 million mark. There's enormous pressure coming from Fargo for their flood control needs, and of course the legislature's having to figure out how they're going to appropriate all that money for all of the needs across the state. House Bill 1286 was the forfeiture laws. That was a bill that we were absolutely not supportive of, but through a series of amendments and activities between law enforcement personnel, including ours here from the city of Minot, as well as our legislators, there were some major adjustments made to that bill, and now it's much more palatable, and it did get passed. And so it's much more favorable, I think, and fair across the board. House Bill 1435, which funds the Siren project, or the statewide interoperable radio network program, is moving forward, and that looks pretty exciting. We're going to need to identify some local money to go for the infrastructure to support the state's share of the Siren project, but that's very promising as well, and that's been a work in process for many, many years now. I want to talk a little bit about community engagement, and in particular discuss the preliminary budget workshop. So this is new. You might recall we had budget workshops last year and the year prior. This is a preliminary budget workshop, and this comes out of a recommendation that we received from the after-action review of last year's budget, and that was many of the council members wanted to be more involved in the setting of the budget priorities. So what better way to do that than to pull us all together and have you and the staff work out what these budget priorities should be, because that will, of course, guide how we put our budget together over the next several months. So several items will be talked about in this meeting. Well, it's about 2 hours. On May the 2nd, it will be held in the City Auditorium, room 203. We'll talk about long-term flood protection, of course, the budget outlook, including gaps and issues of concern. We'll identify the budget priorities, and then we'll talk about major capital projects. So lots of information that we're going to share. We do hope that this particular meeting will be more of a dialogue, more of an exchange, and not a one-sided presentation of just a bunch of information. So we do want to encourage a lot of engagement on all fronts on that. Additionally, we're going to try something new this year as well. The mayor mentioned this in the State of the City address, and that is town halls. We're going to have a series of town hall meetings. This is where we are endeavoring to get City Hall out into the community and meet at various schools or other venues to talk about what's going on in City Hall. It's our effort to really become a lot more accessible in our community and to engage folks sort of in their areas of the community, talk about issues that are important to them at a very local level. We imagine that the first couple of things we want to probably talk about at this town hall, which will be held on May the 8th, is legislative impacts, what that's done for the city, what adjustments the city might need to make as a result of the legislative new legislation. We want to certainly talk about the preliminary budget, and hopefully the conversations we'll have on May 2nd we'll also be able to bring and share with the community. And then an open discussion, just giving people an opportunity to share with us what's on their mind, issues and concerns, suggestions, all of that sort of thing. We don't have a location identified yet, so we're working on that. We have a little bit of time to identify one, but we know we don't want it in City Hall. We don't want it in the library. We don't want it in the auditorium. We really want to be out in the community, so we'll be working on that. That'll run probably 6:30 to something like 8:30 in the evening on May the 8th, so we'll get you more details as that date gets closer. Another thing that we're working on internally here is to develop and memorialize our approach to community engagement. You know, this is something that has been important to the city. The city has engaged very well over the years with the community. We really want to sort of step up and make more consistent our interactions with our community. So we're developing a community engagement strategy. And the idea behind the strategy is we want to really help develop and share information to as many folks as we can about important issues that may influence or impact their lives, so that they have the knowledge and understanding of these issues and can better support or better get involved or engaged with the city to make adjustments to things that we're talking about and that's on the horizon. We have developed a series of approach documents, if you will, or the document, the general basis of the strategy. We'd like to engage now with a select group of members from our community, some community leaders, so we're going to develop a community focus group. This group will be asked to meet about 2 to 3 times over a 6-week period to provide us input and guidance on the development of the strategy. Once we get the strategy developed, we'll bring it to the City Council and ask you to do the same thing, engage with us on making the strategy work for the city and ensure that it has the things that are important to you in it. And of course, there's many benefits to doing this. Obviously, we want to have improved community understanding and better community outcomes. That's really the overall goal here. Just a quick update on the National Disaster Resiliency Program, particularly the gathering space update. This is the process that we're involved in right now. I know the gathering space is, a lot of people are excited about that. We're approaching summer, it's outdoor time, kind of what's going on here. So this is to just show you kind of graphically where we are in the process. We did send out initial offers several weeks ago, and we are working with various property owners currently in receiving and negotiating counter offers. As that progresses, depending upon where we end up, then we will have a feasibility determination, and of course we'll update you on the results of that as we get moving further. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a little bit better information to share with you at the next City Council, not next City Council meeting, but the next City Manager's report. Okay. I do want to welcome Mr. Brian Billingsley to the team. He is the Community and Economic Development Director. Brian, are you out there? This is Brian. He comes to us from the city of Caldwell, Idaho. Brian is a very experienced community development director. He's got 25 years of experience in planning, zoning, building, all of that sort of thing, and we're delighted to have him join us. So, Brian, do you want to say a few words? Yes. Thank you.
Mayor Sitman, members of the council, I'm very excited to be here. I'd like to publicly thank Manager Barry for hiring me to this position. It's a very exciting opportunity for me. Like he mentioned, I have 25 years of experience in Caldwell. Caldwell's a very similar sized city to Minot. It's in the Boise metropolitan area. In Caldwell, I designed and implemented a gathering space there, so I'm very familiar with that. It is a very popular gathering space that opened last June. We also worked on projects like greenbelt planning along a creek, which is very similar to some of the work you're doing here along your river. And I've had a chance this morning to meet with my new staff members, and they're all great people. I'm very excited to work with them, and just like to thank Tom for the confidence they showed in me, and I hope to do a great job for the city of Minot.
Well, welcome, Mr. Billingsley, and seeing as this is your first day, we won't put you in the hot seat quite yet.
That sounds fine.
But welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
All right, up next, I just wanted to mention a couple promotions. that just recently took place in the police department. Jason Sunderbakken, Matt McLeod, and Jason Bombanek were recently promoted to their positions of captain, and sergeant, respectively. Each of them have been with the department for a long period of time, have done amazing things for us, so we just continue to appreciate and support the efforts of the police department in identifying and training up-and-coming leaders and promoting them into the positions that they have. I think Police Chief Olson has done a fabulous job of succession planning and in building his team and moving them into these positions. Are each of them here? Would you mind just standing up and being recognized on your promotions? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your service and your leadership. All righty. That leads me to the next thing, which is the Citizens Academy. I just wanted to make a plug for both the Police Academy and the Fire Academy. You might know that we restarted this last year, rebooted it. The Police Academy will run from May 7th to May 28th from 6 to 9 p.m. on selective evenings. That's going to be exciting. I know some of you, actually several of the council members went through that last year. So we appreciate that. That will be running again. We'll be opening up to the city and all the residents and anyone else who's interested. We have added a Fire Academy. We're going to add that on an intensive basis. So we're going to do a one-day event on June the 1st. So it'll happen essentially right after the Police Academy ends. That weekend on June the 1st from noon to 8, we'll be having an intensive Fire Academy component, which will allow you to learn all about the fire department and the efforts that the fire department does to keep the community safe as well. So if you or anybody you know is interested, certainly go to the website at minotnd.org and go ahead and sign up, and we'll make a space for you. Lastly, we did want to recognize the staff from the auditorium and recreation department. And if you are here, I know Scott, I saw you, and is Ann here? You guys want to come on up? Yes. Would you guys come up? And Ron, would you join me as well? Ellie and others that are gonna come up. And Mayor, if you wouldn't mind joining us here, I know we want to say goodbye to these folks. Actually, not really goodbye, just wish them well on their transfer is essentially what's going on. So, Mayor, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you because I know you have something that you'd like to do. So let me just step out of the way here.
Well, I don't think I need to say thank you enough to everybody for all the work that has gone into this. We talked about this from the very beginning of the concept, which was years ago, even before any of us were probably even part of this. But as I think everybody's agreed, the timing is right. The collaboration is probably at its peak opportunity here. And we're excited to see the transition, and at the same time kind of sad to see city employees leave, but you're not going far because you're still in the same place. If that means leaving, I don't know. But I want to say thank you from all of the council, from the rest of the city and the citizens as well for the work that you guys have done for the Recreation Department over the years. I know you guys will do a great job collaborating with the Parks Department, and the Parks Department I know is going to benefit, and I think we'll see both programs grow because of it. So to that, I have the mayor's official coin for each one of you to say thank you for everything that you guys have done and even help facilitating this process, which I think the community is very excited about. So, Ann, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Scott, I don't know if I'm far. Thank you. Thank you. And for our parks folks, that you absolutely you can break my spirit. Very much. Thank you guys. It's my dreams you take.
I'm excited about it. Just on behalf of the Minot Park District, I want to thank all of the people that were involved in the committee. We spent about 8 months going through the process to finally see this day happen, and today at 8 o'clock when we showed up in the office, it was official. So a lot of work happened behind the scenes to make this happen. I'm thankful to all the people that were involved, and we're very excited to move forward, combining these departments together and hope for great things in our future. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man. Alrighty. Last but not least, I'm excited to announce the city's newest parking ramp that will be going under construction here on the not too distant future. We have exciting features of the parking ramp that we wanted to share with you and the community. It is a $32 million state-of-the-art self-park facility, and it will have automated carousel parking capabilities. This is very exciting, and because of that, we're going to be able to accommodate 500 vehicles in this facility. It does have an anti-icing heated concrete core so that when you drive in, it'll immediately warm your vehicle and of course shed snow and to make it nice and toasty for when you're ready to leave in the wintertime. It does also have a subterranean exhaust ventilation system, and this of course is state-of-the-art and meets all of the EPA environmental regulations. Lastly, what I'm really excited personally about, because this will lower our operating costs for this facility, is it does have a computerized anti-theft detection system and a vehicle sequestration component. So if people try to leave without paying, their vehicles will be immobilized. And then we'll have the police called out on them and all that. So we won't lose money this way. As you know, April 31st is our groundbreaking, and so we're going to be excited to see all of you attend. We're going to paint the shovels gold and turn some dirt here. And if you haven't realized already, it is April Fool's.
And City Manager Barry, I think you just broke the internet.
We never have council on April Fool's, or at least not every once but 7 years or something like that. So I figured we'd just have a little fun with that. And I'm very excited to see what social media does tomorrow, because despite the fact that it says just kidding on here, I guarantee you we will have calls tomorrow. So in any event, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
20% jump in viewership.
Right. Fantastic.
Any questions for City Manager Barry this evening? Alderman Walski.
Mr. Barry, a quick comment. A couple comments have come back to me in the last week. Folks are very excited about the weather turning towards spring, and as our streets are getting the pavement is being revealed from the snow and ice, the dirt is there, and so a lot of people have been wondering when are we going to get the street sweepers out. I know that is often a task that gets planned as this stuff starts to come, but folks are anxious, so I just wanted to share those comments.
Yes, thank you, Alderman Wolski. And we are preparing just for that. Of course, we get the surprise April snow, and then of course that can be problematic as well. But I know the public works staff are on that, and as soon as we're able to, we'll be out there. We want to make it safe for motorists, in particular motorcycles as well. So we're very attentive to that, and the staff are on top of that. You bet.
Thank you, Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Sitma. Mr. Barry, we always talk a lot about flood funding. Can you give us a sense, or give the community a sense of where we're at with state buyout dollars that might come our way, dollars that are going to be specifically directed for buyouts and acquisitions as we move to future phases of flood protection?
I would love to, Alderman Straight. That's in flux right now because, of course, the allotment that the state's going to provide to us, we hope, in this legislative session, depending upon that dollar amount, we may flex some of where that money goes to acquisition or to construction. So we're going to have to make some tough choices if we're not able to get to the $100 million mark for state funding as to where we'd like to apportion those particular dollars. That's going to be a conversation that we'll be much more prepared to sort of address and answer when we get through the legislative session. So the next few weeks are really key to identifying what exactly is the amount that we're going to get, and of that amount, where can we best utilize those funds to continue on acquisitions.
Alderman Straight.
Thanks for the continuation, Mr. Mayor. Tom, I guess as we look forward to the town halls, I think as you and the mayor kind of line out where these are going to be held, I know the folks in the better part of East Minot, in the valley in particular, are itching to know the answer to that question. Yeah. Many of them are going to be in the buyout, and I get numerous phone calls about this, so that's something that I'd like to at least have on your radar.
Thank you.
I guess my other question, Tom, is our city staff talking about what the additional Hub City dollars that come our way, are we going to be line item those towards?
Yes, Alderman Straight, we are. We've been talking a lot about the budget. Recently, we just had our first preliminary budget workshop meeting this morning internally with the staff. And those are some of the questions that we're going to need guidance from you, the City Council, on. We believe, a situation now where we can rely somewhere on $2 to $2.5 million, maybe, possibly $3 million annually in our budget. It's been made clear to us that that funding is not to be used, or would be extremely frowned upon to be used for operational activities, and I would never recommend that either, because it's one-time money. So we believe strongly that that money should be used for capital purchases. Now, as you know, we've just provided you a capital improvement plan, which is on your docket tonight for adoption, north of $400 million. So and that's over a 5-year period. So if we do the math, $2.5 million may sound great, but I can tell you that we still have more needs than we do funding. So we're going to look as part of that budget workshop with you on May the 2nd for guidance on where you'd like us to place those types of resources. And we did achieve some budget savings last year as well in the budget. For example, we had a little bit better sales tax postings than we expected and projected last year. We also had some unspent staff salary savings because we weren't fully staffed last year. So there's a little bit of money available there that may be used also for one-time projects, since we don't want to use it as operational money. Those are the kinds of things that I want to put in front of you, and I want your guidance to help us with what you feel should be programmed in. And we want to use the CIP document as that guidance document, since it has been prioritized by the department heads relating to the various criteria that they feel is most prudent for the expenditure of those funds in each of their areas.
Alderman Straight.
I guess, Tom, you cycled around beautifully to ultimately where I wanted to get. So I'm going to just point it out to my colleagues right now that when we have this budget workshop, I know Tom and I probably have a difference in opinion on this, but there are many of us that talk about quality of life initiatives in town, and we've obviously taken away the Community Facilities Fund to move it and direct some of those dollars towards flood protection. And I think it's got to be part of the conversation at the budget workshop to consider ultimately maybe using some of these Hub City dollars for community facilities. The mayor had spoke earlier of the Class B tournament. It's a classic example. We gave $1 million to Minot State that's going to go into the upgrades in their new facility. The State B tournament alone brings $1 million in sales tax revenue to this city, I think. So this seems to be a pertinent conversation when we get into that in May. So I just wanted to put that all on your radar while Mr. Barry's at the podium. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor Sitma. Tom, do you guys have any coordination with the county and their budget schedule with the Hub City funding coming in? Is there any opportunities to leverage dollars to go further? Because am I correct in assuming that, or saying that the county also receives some Hub City funding dollars from this allocation?
The county has not historically received anywhere near the money that we've received for Hub City funding, and there are opportunities to partner with the county on various projects and those sorts of things. To some extent, some of that's already happening, but to a larger extent that this funding may allow us to do a few more things than maybe we have historically been able to do, and the synergies that may be there and benefiting by that relationship could be good. We, the city, have really been on the better receiving end as it relates to Hub City funding in comparison to the county. So they really don't receive that much. And same thing, unfortunately, is true with the school district. Because of the way the formula was developed initially, the school districts haven't been, at least Minot Public School District has not received the type of revenues that maybe it otherwise could have received from the impacts associated with the oil and gas development.
Continue.
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that's part of the conversation when we come to the budget, that if we're able to leverage these dollars with these different organizations, maybe we can stretch those dollars a little further and have some of the projects coincide. Just like to see that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Further questions for the city manager? Thank you, Tom.
Great. Thank you.
That takes us to our attorney's report for this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I